Okay, good morning. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on the Whiteshell Laboratories Fire Program. My name is Mike Giardini. I will be the host of today's webinar. First, I would like to acknowledge that the Whiteshell Restoration Project is located on Treaty 1 and Treaty 3 territory, as well as the homeland of the Red River Métis. As an organization, CNL recognizes and appreciates Indigenous peoples' connections to these places. CNL also recognizes the contributions that First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples have made, both in shaping and strengthening the communities where these projects are situated and to this country as a whole. We'll start with the presentation and then we'll open the floor for Q&A. There is simultaneous interpretation. If you would like to listen in French, you can click the globe icon on the bottom right and select the language you'd like to hear. Our session is planned for about 1 hour. We anticipate a 30-minute presentation and the rest will be Q&A. You can submit your questions on the Q&A chat and we will get to them at the end. Note that we will be recording this session because we post on YouTube afterwards. And if you have any issues, please email ermstakeholder@cnl.ca. Our amazing team will be watching the inbox, so we'll try to get you sorted out. Now, before we get to the fire program, I'd like to introduce Bill Daly, who is our Public and Licensing Communications Director. And he's going to go over briefly the Whiteshell Laboratories relicensing process. So Bill, if, one sec. Okay, so yeah, Bill, over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So as Mike had mentioned, just before we get into the main topic of today's webinar, I wanted to take this opportunity to just quickly touch on our application, the CNL's application to renew our operating license at the Whiteshell Laboratories site. So as you may or may not be aware, all nuclear proponents are required to apply for operating licenses that are granted by the CNSC, or Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, Canada's nuclear regulator, for a defined period of time. So the Whiteshell license is now coming to its expiry date, the end of this year. So CNL in February has submitted our application to renew that license. Since we've submitted that application, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission has responded and has scheduled a public hearing on the process to happen on October 23rd and 24th of this year. As part of the relicensing processes, all proponents are required to submit our evidence through a commission member document, which will be submitted to the CNSC in July of this year. That becomes a public document that anyone can access. It provides a summary review of the various operations and activities that have taken place at Whiteshell during the current license period, and that will be submitted. And then in October, there will be a public hearing. The actual location of the hearing itself is still to be determined, but once that information becomes available, both the CNSC and us will make that publicly available for everyone. As part of that public hearing process, any member of the public, of Indigenous communities or organizations or First Nations have the ability and are able to intervene in that process. So as part of this, the CNSC offers a participant funding program. So if anyone would like to submit an intervention and would like some capacity funding to help with their review of CNL's documents, then they can apply. The deadline to apply with the CNSC is April 19th, and we can provide the link to that application page if needed. You don't need to apply for participant funding in order to intervene. Interventions can take the form of a letter submitted. They can take the form of a presentation or a oral or visual presentation. The deadline to request to be part of the hearing process is September 16th. You would request that right with the CNSC, but again, CNL is here to help walk you through that process if you should desire to do that. The relicensing will look at various activities at the Whiteshell site, all of its safety control areas, and then ultimately a decision is made by the CNSC Commission. The actual decision takes about 60 days following the public hearing process. We will keep updates on our website, engagewithcnl.ca/Whiteshell, that you can see at the bottom of your screen there. You can contact us directly by calling us, by sending an email, or going to that website for more information. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to Mike, but just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware that this process is happening, and that we are at CNL. We are always happy to talk to you about any aspect of this if you would like to submit an application. Mike, back over to you.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Okay, so if you have any questions for Bill, he'll be able to answer them at the end. But now we'll introduce our main speaker of the day. Here is Brent McDonald. He is the fire chief of the Whiteshell Fire Department. Brent, over to you.
Thanks, Mike. Hello, everybody. My name's Brent. Happy to walk you through a presentation on a lot of really amazing work that's been done over the last year here at Whiteshell within the fire program. The first picture you see is a recent picture where we just took ownership of a new wildland truck that I'm going to talk about, and some of the crew that was in for training on that piece of apparatus that day. We'll start with a safety share. We can advance to the next slide, please. So every spring brings the risk of wildland and forest fires across Canada. Experts are indicating that we could be in for a record wildfire season this year due to low precipitation levels. The province of Manitoba has some resources available through both the wildfire program and through the Office of the Fire Commissioner. The Fire Smart program has documentation for fire smarting your home, your cottage, your RV, or your farm. The resources are there to kind of help walk you through how to determine your risk or your safety level for being in a unplanned wildfire, forest fire event. There's tips like eliminating fuel loads of residual organic material from a 10-meter perimeter around your home to prevent the spread of wildfire. There's a document that will aid in landscaping from a fire smart perspective, and there's also a scorecard that you can do a self-assessment. As part of our safety share, remember, only have campfires, or if you are on a farm and you're burning waste, do so in approved burning receptacles. Always make sure that you've got a fire safety plan as part of that activity, having a water hose, garden hose, or fire extinguisher available. If you are in the rural areas, make sure that you obtain burning permits and are aware of burning bans that may be applied by your municipal government. Never burn on a windy day, and remember that a large majority of wildfires are caused by careless human behavior. Poorly extinguished campfires, discarded smoking material, those kinds of things have been linked to numerous large-scale provincial and national disasters on a wildfire, forest fire perspective. So that's the safety share I wanted to pass along, given the time of year that we are in. There will be a link to the publication sent in the email that you receive upon completion of this webinar. Next slide, please. So a little bit of history. I've been in the fire program for 24 years, and I've been with CNL for just under 2 years. Last April, through a self-assessment, we identified that there was deficiencies within our fire program. CNL's response was swift, and we placed things in a safe state so that an extent of condition could be performed. An immense amount of work has happened in the last year to ensure that we have both compliance of all things, all programs, but especially within the fire program, and then ensuring that contingencies are in place to maintain that rigor and that level of compliance that is expected. Innumerable people from many different departments across CNL as a whole, both at Whiteshell and Chalk River, aided in some of the successes that I'm about to walk you through. Special shout out to our procurement team here at Whiteshell, projects, maintenance, operation, engineering. It would be impossible to log the number of hours that a really broad, diverse team of experts and professionals pitched into to stand up what is now a world-class fire department. So our systems and functions were tested to ensure that they were up to code. We kind of went through everything from stem to stern to make sure we were meeting our regulatory requirements. Training was conducted with existing staff to verify personnel to ensure they were competent and qualified. There was a large up training campaign that occurred, as well as up staffing. We've hired 35 new people into dedicated fire program roles. 24 of those are all professionally qualified level 2 firefighters. Significant upgrades in equipment, apparatus, and fire response capability. Next slide, please. So with some of our training, the photos that you see, the first step was we took all of our existing qualified personnel and put them through a fairly intensive 30-hour requal to make sure that people were able to do what we said we could do when we needed to be able to do it. That was conducted in-house in cooperation with both Lac du Bonnet and Pinawa. I'll touch on that in a little greater detail later on. We then moved to up training some of our staff in an in-house program. So through the Manitoba Emergency Services College, we ran an internal level 1 firefighting program, which is a 250-hour program that our guys completed in 5 weeks, which is a really intense commitment. We were so proud of those guys to be able to say that they had a 100% success rate in the written and practical evaluation to aid them in becoming accredited firefighters. With the upstaffing that we did, we hired a whole bunch of qualified firefighters, but then we went further and added additional training to them as well. We sent 4 guys away for water rescue technician certification. We sent 9 guys away for high angle rope rescue technician certification. We sent an additional 9 folks away for confined space rescue technician certification. We put over 20 people through Blue Card incident command training, and we sent 2 guys away to become Blue Card program facilitators so that we can internally accredit our folks in Blue Card Incident Command, which is kind of the premier incident command program that was developed out of Arizona. With our training, in May of last year, we brought on 3 assistant chiefs from Ontario. These guys all had 20 to 30 plus years of training and experience, and their sole job was to make sure that our personnel were trained and drilled to perfection. In August of 2023, we had a fire response needs analysis, which a third-party independent engineering firm comes in, completes an assessment, and does a drill response observation. and they gave us, you know, the highest possible mark that we could get for that drill response. It was executed, you know, so professionally and so quickly that they were disappointed that they couldn't evaluate more, because the guys were swift and prompt in their response and mitigation of the training scenario. Next slide, please. Moving on with training, you know, we by program standards, NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, 1001, which is a firefighting standard, says that a firefighter should be able to fully don their personal protective equipment within 3 minutes, and then don their self-contained breathing apparatus within 3 minutes. By some of our requirements within the nuclear industry, we have a requirement under 393 to be able to don our gear in 1 minute, and then don our SCBA in 1 minute. Through the training that we've done with our crews, there is now a list hanging in our fire hall, and it's called the Sub 60 Club. And it is individuals on our department who have been able to go from uniform dress to being fully equipped in both their structural firefighting gear and SCBA, everything in under 60 seconds. So again, by NFPA standard, you would have 6 minutes to do that. By 393 standards, you would have 2 minutes to do that. And internally, we have a large number of people that are able to do it now in under 60 seconds, which is just it's something we're proud of, but it just shows a level of training and dedication that our people have committed to making this a world-class fire department. Some of the pictures that you see are level 1 class. On the left is in Brandon at the Provincial Fire College training area, conducting training. That group spent their Father's Day weekend prepping for exam at the training site. The other pictures are vehicle extrication training that we recently conducted here on site as part of a level 2 certification process. Picture in the center is joint training that we facilitated with Lac du Bonnet and some other community stakeholders. Yeah, training is our kind of the biggest drive that a lot of our guys have right now, is making sure that our skills are honed to the highest possible degree. Next slide. So that's our up staff and training piece. With vehicles and equipment, one of the first major pieces of equipment that we received as an upgrade was the picture on your left, which is our new Spartan pump. That truck has 1,000 gallons of water on board. It has seating capacity for 6, and it has a state-of-the-art remote controlled water distribution system, like a monitor. And it also has a light tower so that we can illuminate, you know, any scene that we may need to put light upon. That truck is 1,500 gallons per minute pump capable, and you know, substantial piece of equipment for us. The 2 pictures on your right is our new wildland truck, and it was identified that we should have the ability, with the amount of wildland area surrounding our site, have a dedicated response capability. This truck was locally built in Manitoba by a company called Acres, which is a Hutterite colony outside of Wawanesa, just a little bit southeast of Brandon. That truck has pump and roll capability. It has 400 gallons of water. It's foam capable. All of our trucks are foam capable, but it's also got a remote control turret coming off of the front, so that the operator could turn on the pump, activate water, activate foam, all without getting out of the truck. And it's operated by joystick. The picture on the top shows custom ground sweeps, which is a water distribution system that would allow that truck to traverse, the edge of a ditch or a roadway and put down a blanket of water or foam to stop a wildfire. Both pieces of apparatus are substantial, improvements to site. The wildland truck specifically, it's also set up for a lot of rescue capability that we'll get into in a couple slides coming up. So those are our two major upgrades to equipment. Next slide, please. So when we start talking about some of the other equipment, we had a couple open houses. So the picture on your left is a device called an Arizona Vortex. It is a specialized piece of rescue equipment that will allow for us to set up over top of a confined space. It will also allow for us to set up off the edge of a roof, elevator rescue, basically anything involving needing to utilize a rope system to remove a injured worker or a victim. The Arizona Vortex is configurable, and your imagination is the only thing that limits it. Highly specialized piece of equipment that has numerous applications and benefits here on site. A traditional fire and rescue service, they say that less than 10% of the job of a fire department now is actual fire response. A lot of fire departments, the focus is on prevention and education and training. But in the response realm, fire departments respond to a wide array of events: confined space, high angle, water rescue, medical events. So we've made sure that our fire department is representative of that with our response capability. We want to make sure that any potential response thing that we could need, be it for public or employee, we want to make sure that we are capable of fulfilling the need if the call comes in. Picture in the middle is that's actually me on the stretcher. That is a Rex stretcher, and our site GM is testing it out. That is a customizable, collapsible patient extrication system. It's equipped with a handbrake, and it will allow for you to quickly traverse somebody from within a confined space out. It'll allow you to navigate up and down stairs. So again, some of our buildings are quite large, have very vast confined spaces. In trying to facilitate removal, it's going to be safer for the patient and safer for the rescuer using a piece of equipment like that. And finally, the picture to your right, that is the inside of one of the compartments on our new wildland rescue truck. So a lot of that orange equipment that you see is lithium-ion powered Hamatro vehicle extrication equipment. So again, we're not responding to the highway and going to large vehicle incidents, but there's always that potential in an industrial application that we need the same tools and capabilities. So this truck is set up with full extrication capability, patient packaging, technical rescue, and wildland response. Next slide, please. So we've spent a lot of time over the last year, on top of everything else I've talked about, in relationship building. We've been fortunate to form relationships with the community of Lac du Bonnet, their fire department. They have a training area that we've been able to tap into and rent. Picture on your left is conducting the initial training qualification and verification of existing employees. The picture in the center is a new certification program that we're running. And then finally, the picture on your right is a photo where we were assisting Lac du Bonnet with a training event. They were facilitating a level 1 program, and they had people from Lac du Bonnet, Pinawa, Whitemouth, Bird River, and Sagkeeng First Nation as students. So when we found out that that training event was happening, we made a truck available. We sent myself and a number of instructors to go and assist, and then CNL also sponsored lunch for the day to ensure that those students that are volunteering on behalf of their communities received the best possible care and education while they were there, and it was a great success. Next slide. So Pinawa, we've forged some really strong relationships with Pinawa as well. Pinawa is an MOU partner with us. We've got a memorandum of understanding with Pinawa. They would provide response to our site. They came to site last year 3 times for training events. So we held joint training sessions where they got to interact with our personnel and our equipment. We got to interact, with their personnel and their equipment. We made sure that all of our equipment talked to each other, couplings and hoses and fittings all worked. We also went to their fire hall for a training night. Myself and one of our gentlemen from Ontario went and did a rapid intervention presentation and showcased some equipment that we have at our disposal that could be used if necessary. And then finally, they came in October for an observed fire response drill that CNSC was watching at the time. The response drill again went as good as could possibly be expected. Very high marks and very positive feedback. That strong relationship, has been applied to other agencies as well. We had the Manitoba Wildfire Program in last fall, looking to do a joint exercise with them where they could potentially even land a helicopter and an initial attack team here, so that they can see the equipment capability we have and our teams can interface with each other. Working with the Manitoba Emergency Services College to stand up a memorandum of agreement to allow training to be delivered here at site. Once we're able to get that established, we can deliver training to our own personnel, but also to neighboring fire departments. We've got approval to obtain the provincial public safety communication system radio, and we're looking to fully integrate into the mutual aid district as a strong resource for the entire area. Also looking to set up an MOU with the Manitoba component of the National Urban Search and Rescue Team. The HUSAR program, Heavy Urban Search and Rescue Team, was stood up in 2004, and there's 6 teams within Canada. I've been on our Manitoba team since inception, and we're looking to add probably a 16-person component to that team to aid in, training opportunities for our firefighters, but also providing, the resources that we have in-house on a local, provincial, and even national level. So lots of ongoing relationship building happening. Next slide. So in summary, there's been an incredible amount of work done over the past year. We went into a we call it a safety stand down, but it was not a stand down, it was a stand up. There was an immense amount of work done to turn our program around and truly have us represented as a world-class fire department within a world-class restoration site. We've drawn on people from across the province that have years and years of experience. A couple key individuals I want to point out. Our deputy chief of training came to us with 28 years with the city of Winnipeg, and he helped stand up their hazmat program. Another one of our training officers came with 22 years with the Emergency Services College as a provincial hazmat coordinator. Those 2 individuals have probably the most experience in the province of Manitoba when it comes to hazardous materials response. And that defense in depth will allow us to build, a really robust hazmat program here at our site. We have personnel who have joined our department that have, 15, 20 years with other fire departments, and we are truly a world-class organization. So it's been a lot of work, but we're very, very proud of what we've achieved, and there's more work to do. But I thank you for tuning in and listening to me talk about some of our successes, and I'll I'll turn it over back to Mike at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brent. That was a great presentation. Some incredible stats. You talked about this 60-second dress is it blows my mind. I don't even think I can get my socks on that fast. So we will wait a bit for questions. If you can use the Q&A function to type them in. We'll wait a little bit to see if any come in. Okay, and a reminder that you can also, if you have any questions for Bill, when he talked about the relicensing at the beginning, you can also type those in. He is on standby. Okay. Okay, well, we'll get started here. Question 1 for Brent. When might you use the high angle rescue equipment in Manitoba?
So Manitoba is the prairies, and it is relatively flat. That is not lost on me. Numerous places that the high angle training can be utilized. Just simply an injured worker on a flat roof. That may have to be an option if some of the buildings that we have on site are multi-story buildings. That's where that training would be utilized and applied. Off-site, you know, a lot of fire departments will train in both high and low angle rescue, just a vehicle that has driven off the roadway into a ravine. That training and equipment becomes part of your response profile. So that's where that would get utilized.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Was it hard to recruit all of those new firefighters, and where did they come from? And then the next question is how many in total? So if you can.
Right. So short answer is no. It was not hard to recruit. With that said, people who get into the fire service, right? It's steeped in tradition and culture, and most people who end up working for a fire department are insanely proud of being associated with that fire department. The vast majority of departments in Canada are what you would call a paid-on-call composite volunteer style. And those departments will provide training to their personnel. Eventually, if they get enough training and certification, they will meet the requirements for a full-time fire department. So when we initiated the hiring campaign, we had substantial response to the campaign. We stood up a fairly stringent process for the hiring. Personnel that met our training quals would come to site, and they had a three-part process, which would then drive to our selection committee. So we ended up interviewing dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people. We ended up hiring 25 firefighters out of the gate. We've hired additional people within the fire program, you know, deputy chiefs and training officers, fire prevention officers, but boots on the ground, we've hired 25 full-time level 2 firefighters to date.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Just waiting on the next question. Are there any efforts being made to up the numbers of female firefighters on site?
For sure. So, I mean, here at CNL, we have our diversity, equity, and inclusivity journey, right? We're looking for opportunities to add diversity and inclusivity at every possible turn. We just conducted a captain lieutenant competition, and one of the questions on that exam process, that interview process, was specifically tied to this. So yes, it is certainly something that we're looking at trying to target to not only just females, but you know, a broader spectrum across the board. Diversity, equity, and inclusivity is kind of, you know, at the top of our radar right now to make some improvements.
Okay, thank you, Brent. We'll give you a break here. The next one is for Bill. Why is it a 3-year renewal of license, not longer?
Thanks for that question. Generally speaking, the commission, the CNSC, determines the length of time that they are willing to grant these operating licenses. In this case, there are a number of factors, and we will follow up with some of that detail in writing following the meeting. But generally speaking, the CNSC uses these periods where they can review the proponents' kind of activities over a license period during these public hearing processes. So in this case, the CNSC decided for a slightly shorter term. So there'd be another touch point for review within the next 3 to 4 years. But again, we'll follow up with a little bit more detail on that specific question after the webinar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill. We'll continue with more firefighter questions. Brent, do you respond to other fires in the area or just at the Whiteshell site?
So right now, we have a requirement to you know, protect the site. Depending, we have a minimum number of personnel that have to be available at all times. If you know, Pinawa or a neighboring department requested assistance, we would do. There's a number of ways that we would be able to respond offsite. We just have to ensure that you know, regulatory requirement to provide that min comp at site is met. As part of, you know, the standing up of the mutual aid integration that I discussed, part of that will include, you know, the framework of being able to do recalls for off-duty firefighters, providing that support to our neighboring departments. So that those conversations are underway. There's a little bit more work to do with that, but you know, if Pinawa called, we would do, you know, everything practical to support them, understanding that we do have a license requirement to maintain our min comp.
Okay, thank you. We'll continue on. Has there ever been a forest fire risk at the Whiteshell site?
So I think just given, you know, we're in the Whiteshell, right, which is a fairly densely forested area. We know that there is always a risk of a forest fire. We are fortunate that, you know, the Manitoba Wildfire Program has a base out of Lac du Bonnet. I believe, you know, not since I've been here, but before my time, there may have been lightning strikes in the area that were dealt with by the Conservation Wildfire Program. So there's always a risk, you know, and it's a recognized risk, which part of having our wildland truck helps aid in that.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Lots of good questions coming in. We're just trying to organize. Okay. Okay, the aspect of radiation exposure, is there an ambulance requirement to deal with exposure?
So there is current day-to-day operations. There are plans in place that you know, there would not be a significant risk that would slow the response of EMS capabilities. We have contingency plans in place through our RP program. As you know, different project work may ramp up. I think that's something that we end up looking at moving forward. But currently today, you know, we do have procedures and contingency plans that address those concerns and help us to achieve, you know, the ALARA principle, which is as low as reasonably achievable.
Okay, thank you, Brent. How many firefighters have hazmat technician certification?
So currently all of our personnel, in order to be a level 2 firefighter, you have to have hazardous materials operations. So broad spectrum, everybody has hazmat operations. We have approximately 6 personnel that are hazmat tech, accredited hazmat tech qualified. Over the next year, we're hoping to add at least 16 additional hazmat techs internally.
Okay, thank you. Would any of the training programs cover fighting wildfires that are close to site?
So yeah, within our program documents, we have a training plan. One of the, you know, one of the programs that our guys have to do recurrent training on is wildfire firefighting. So setting up, you know, the wildland pumps, deploying wildland hose, drafting, all of that stuff. So all of our personnel have to, as part of their ongoing training, be trained and maintain training in wildfire firefighting.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brent. Thanks for answering all of those questions, and Bill for your input on the relicensing. I think, yep, that's the end of questions coming in. Now, if there are a few that come in as we wrap up, we'll make sure to include them in our answers when we send out the wrap-up email with the links on YouTube. But for now, we will wrap up this webinar. Brent, great job on this webinar, and thanks again, Bill. Thanks to everybody for attending. Really appreciate it. We do these webinars bi-monthly, and we do various topics. If you ever have any ideas for webinar topics, you can always reach out to us at ermstakeholder@cnl.ca. But for now, we will end this webinar today. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
everybody.